President-elect Trump's new cabinet is starting to take shape because overnight, while you were sleeping, he tapped Tom Homan to be his border czar.
Trump saying, quote, "There is nobody better at policing and controlling our borders." Likewise, Tom Homan will be in charge of all deportation of illegal aliens back to their country of origin.
He worked with the president to come up with this job description, so let's hear from him. In his first interview after the major announcement, incoming border czar Tom Homan. Tom, congratulations to you. It's bad for us. We lose you as a contributor. What went into the decision and the position?
Well, look, I've been on this network 4 years complaining about what this administration did to this border. I've been yelling and screaming about it, telling them what they need to do to fix it. So when the president asked me, would you come back and fix it? Of course I have to. I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. So, look, I'm honored the president asked me to come back and help solve this national security crisis. So I'm looking forward to it. And look, I love Fox. I love the family there. But I think that the calling is clear. I got to go back and help because every morning I get up, every morning I'm pissed off about what this administration did to the most secure border in my lifetime. So I'm going to go back and do what I can to fix it.
So, Tom, let's talk about the job because you're not an amateur. You've been doing this for years. You're a big cop. Also, you worked the border before, went over to ICE. You've done it all. What does the process look like? Because I think some people get the impression that you're shooting from your hip, but you know what you're doing here, right?
I know exactly what I'm doing. And look, this is the second time I get out of retirement for this president. And because it matters. And look, I was a Border Patrol agent. I wore that uniform, and I'm proud that I wore that uniform. So, and I was an ICE agent. I was the first ICE director that actually came up through the ranks. So the 20,000 men and women that worked for me, I didn't ask them to do anything. I did do myself. I was one of them. So look, I know the border, and I know there's a lot of great patriots. Look, I shut my phone off Friday night because I couldn't handle the phone calls, the texts, and emails from thousands of ICE agents and Border Patrol agents excited about the rumor I'm coming back. But more importantly, thousands of retired agents, retired Border Patrol agents, retired military that want to come in and volunteer to help this president secure the border and do the deportation operation. So I've been off the grid for 3 days just because I couldn't handle all the phone calls, and plus all the death threats rolling in. My family's not at home right now because that's starting. But that's something we're going to deal with. They're not going to bully me away. They're not going to shut me up, and they're not going to make me go away. This is the biggest national security vulnerability this nation has seen since 9/11. We have to fix it.
And it's one of the reasons Kamala Harris lost and Donald Trump won. So Tom, you just mentioned deportations. I know during the last Trump administration, when you were there, they did have the large-scale worksite, essentially raids, where they would go into a place and there would be hundreds of people who were in the country illegally. I know on 60 Minutes, a couple of weeks ago, you said that those would continue under Donald Trump in the next administration. What do you have planned? Well, I know you don't want to give away the whole game book, but you do have deportations, mass workplace stuff planned, any other kind of category of deportations of interest?
Look, as the president said on stage many times, which I agree with 100%, it's going to be the same it was during the first administration, which is just a hell of a lot more of them because 10 million people have entered this country illegally under the Biden administration, or they actually let into this country, even though it's violation of federal law, what they've been doing, the abuse of the parole authority. But look, I've been clear, President Trump's been clear. Public safety threats and national security threats will be the priority because they have to be. They pose the most danger to this country. So we're going to prioritize those groups, those who always have final orders, those that had due process at great taxpayer expense, and the federal judge says you must go home, and they didn't. They became a fugitive. So, and as far as worksite operations have to happen. Here's why, Steve. Where do we find most victims of sex trafficking and forced labor trafficking? At work sites. And the Biden administration shut down work sites. On one point, we say we care about sex trafficking and human trafficking. Then they shut down work site enforcement, which is one of the main areas we find the victims of this. I want to add one more thing, another priority. This administration has lost over 300,000 children that were smuggled in this country by criminal cartels they can't find. That's another priority. We need to save these children because some of these children are in forced labor, some of these children are in sex trafficking, some of these children are living a life of hell every day, and we need to save these children and get them back with their families.
You know, Tom, first of all, congratulations to you. And I'm so glad for the Border Patrol that morale is already being lifted. They have just been beaten down by the policies of this last administration. I'm really encouraged by what you're saying, because I think the toughest part of your job isn't the deportation. It's dealing with the propaganda from the other side saying that what you're doing is not compassionate, that it's not humanitarian. And what do you plan to do? I'm glad you mentioned the 300,000 children that are missing, but how are you going to deal with those kinds of attacks, even though you know that this open border has led to sex trafficking of children and an exponential increase of child labor, illegal child labor?
Frankly, I don't care what people think about me, especially on the left. Again, you know, when you have a historic crisis, a crisis this big, here's what they need to know. When you have a crisis this big that overwhelms the Border Patrol, where the majority of Border Patrol are no longer on patrol, they're making sandwiches, they're changing diapers, they're making baby formula, they're making hospital runs, they're making airport runs. When you take most of Border Patrol agents off the border to deal with humanitarian crisis, that's when the fentanyl comes across to kill 250,000 Americans. That's when the sex trafficking has increased 600%. That's when non-suspected terrorists has crossed this country. They've had a record of people on terrorist watches that have been arrested at the southern border. That's why you have over 2 million gotaways. How many of them came from a country sponsoring terror? So I don't care what anybody's opinion is on illegal immigration. When you create a crisis this big, all these other bad things happen. That's why you have to secure the border. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent. Border security is national security. We should all be on the same side of that. I've been saying this for the last couple of years. And the director of the FBI actually agrees with me. I don't respect him greatly, but he agrees with me. The southwest border is the biggest national security vulnerability this nation's ever seen. He sees more red flags now than ever before. We have to secure the border. And as far as the people want to push back on deporting these people, what is the option? You have a right to claim asylum. You have a right to see a judge, and we make that happen. But at the end of that due process, if the judge says you must go home, then we have to take them home. And because if we're not, what the hell are we doing? If the judge's order doesn't mean anything, then shut down the immigration court, take the Border Patrol off the border, so there's no consequences violating the laws of this country. We'll give you a fair shake. You get a chance to claim asylum, but due process doesn't mean squat if the final decision of the court isn't carried out. What is the option? Let them all stay? Because if that's the option you want, you're never going to fix the southern border, because you send a message to the whole world. Come to the United States, enter the country legally, which is a crime. Don't show up in court, or show up in court, get an order removal, but you still get to stay. That doesn't work.
Tom, I guess you got to build a wall. And you got to stop sanctuary cities. Both times the Democrats stopped every time you went forward, they gum you up in court. You don't have to give it away, but is there a plan if sanctuary cities, these city councils don't allow the sanctuary cities to go away? Is there a plan B you have?
Well, I think, look, it'd be great to have local law enforcement assist ICE, because, you know, one thing we learned during 9/11 report was we shouldn't have stovepipes. Law enforcement should be working with law enforcement. But, you know, there's two things. Number one, under President Trump, he was suing the sanctuary cities, DOJ suing the sanctuary cities, pulling federal funds. Of course, day one, when Joe Biden came in office, he stopped that lawsuit. So that has to be put back in place. And look, I've seen some of these Democratic governors say they're going to stand in the way. They're going to make it hard for us. Well, you know, a suggestion: if you're not going to help us, get the hell out of the way, but we're going to do it. So if we can't get assistance from New York City, and we may have to double the number of agents we send in New York City, because we're going to do the job. We're going to do the job without you or with you. But it's much easier to arrest a bad guy. Like I just said, we're concentrating on public safety threats of human and national security threats. Right. It's much easier to arrest a bad guy in the jail. Give us access to Rikers Island that we've been kicked out of. Let us get the bad guy in jail. It's safer for the alien. It's safer for the officer. It's safer for the community. But if you're going to release these bad guys, out in the community, then we're going to have to go find them, which puts the officer at risk, puts the community at risk, and puts, you know, and bottom line is, sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. And the left keeps saying, well, we want victims and witnesses of a crime to feel safe, come to the police department knowing we don't work with life. Let me make one thing clear. That's just a stone cold lie. Victims and witnesses of a crime does not want the bad guy back in their neighborhood.
That's true.
And certainly. And most illegal, the illegal immigrant community, they broke the law being there, they shouldn't be. However, after being there, they're God-fearing family people. I get it. Do they want a sexual predator in their neighborhood? Do they want someone convicted of DUI 10 times in their neighborhood? Let us protect not only the American communities, let us protect the immigrant community. Who's the victim of MS-13 crime?
Yeah.
The immigrant community.
Yeah.
So, if sanctuary cities don't want to help us, to get the hell out of the way, because we're coming.
Tom, there's no one better for the job. Congratulations on the job well done. This is something the former president campaighed on. Thanks, Tom.
Hey,
Thanks.
Tom, the last person who was border czar, she didn't want to be called border czar. You're proud of it, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to look like a genius, because when you follow failure, you can't help but succeed, right?
Yeah.
And look, to the American people, President Trump is going to secure this border. He's going to save American lives. He's going to, by securing the border, we're going to drop illegal alien crime, which is skyrocketing.
Yep.
Well, less people are going to die from fentanyl. Less children are going to be sex trafficked. Less women will be sex assaulted on the southern border. The criminal cartels will be put out of business by this president.
Go get him, Tom Homan. Appreciate it.
There are people all across America right now clapping, watching him say that.
And I'm
By the
sorry,
way, you guys-
since there's a transition going on, the Department of Homeland Security, they need to get a security detail to his house immediately. I was disheartened to hear that he said that his family is under death threats. Everyone knows that the terrorists, the enemies to this country now know he's a real threat now. That it's been announced that he's the border czar. He needs a detail right now.
Doesn't
No
he
question
send a
about it.
confirmation?